Welcome back to First on Film. I'm Gal Balaban, and I'm very excited to be here with the directors of Forevergreen, Nathan Engelhardt and Jeremy Spears, who were recently nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. And as we're recording this, I believe today you guys just hit 3 million views on YouTube. So
Wow.
first of all, how are you guys today, and what's this ride been like, both on the award side and now bringing it out to the world on YouTube?
Yeah. Go for it, Jeremy. You
I
wanna
mean, yeah, it's just it's been an interesting thing to track because we feel like we've never really had a video on YouTube before. I think this was kind of our first one. We had put a few of our kind of making of videos up along with it, and I think we had a trailer on early on. So we don't really know how it all works, but it's kind of amazing to see
Mm.
that if people have that link, they can share it around and then the comments have been very encouraging. We don't read all of them, but there's been so many, and it's just amazing to hear how it's impacting people, how they're sharing it with their kids, how older people from all different ages, all different walks of life are interacting with this film. And so anyways, it's just, yeah, it's really cool. And wow, 3 million, that is awesome. I just got up
That's
this
no small
morning and I was
number.
like, wait a minute, what? So
Yeah, I think it's funny because without I've been told is that 3 million. While there are other videos that can hit that quickly, especially if you have a fan base already, but the thing about this film is that it really came out of nowhere, right? It didn't have really an internet presence until we started doing our marketing and campaigning and things like that. So for it to have that kind of word of mouth is really incredible, especially for not having any sort of internet presence before this moment. So it's pretty amazing to see just what God's doing. So we're incredibly encouraged by that, and just are happy, like Jeremy said, that the comments and the feedback has been so overwhelmingly positive. So we're grateful for that.
I want to share a few words about how much I loved Forever Green. I think it's, first of all, it just looks beautiful, and I think, like you guys touched on, it's equally accessible and resonant for all ages and generations, but then it takes on new meanings per generation that they can share with one another. And one of my
Mhm.
favorite things was not just watching it, but then talking about it with my mom, who is a huge animal and nature enthusiast. She's a vegetarian, and she also had some insights that really resonated with me about how the film is about parenting and the things we take for granted, literally Mother Nature in a way that keeps giving to us unconditionally, and the beautiful world that is in front of us that we should appreciate rather than to exploit, and protect it for everyone and have a better life for ourselves. So I'd love to hear how this began. I know it stemmed from a biblical parable, and how you brought that and that aspect of your faith throughout the development.
yeah.
Ye-
Well, let me jump in real quick. I just have a
Yeah.
question for you. Has
Yeah.
your mom ever had pine nuts before? I mean, come on, that's like the ultimate.
Uh,
Just kidding.
my mom did point out, she was like, he had that, and then he had like the human chips, and he was still hungry, and she was like, maybe this is about
Yeah,
humanity and instant gratification and how we want everything artificial. And I was like, I really think you're onto something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it really was born out of a desire. You kind of hit the nail on the head with the spiritual perspective. I mean, the Forever Green was born out of a desire to tell a story about unconditional love, which we certainly see that in the parental, paternal kind of sense, or maternally, same, and also just undeserved grace. I think that's probably the big one, and really is a reflection of our faith journey and what God did in sending his own son Jesus to save us from our wanderings away, our sin, our rebellion, really, and that he would still, while we were still sinners and enemies, that he would yet lay down his life for us. That's such a powerful message. I think not just for ancient times 2000 years ago when Jesus told the parable of the prodigal son, but still today I think that You know, when you see someone doing a kind act to another person, that oxytocin release that you are able to feel when you do a kind gesture or act to someone else. But it's the only like brain chemical that, like, when you witness acts of generosity and kindness, you also get a little hit of oxytocin. That's pretty cool, just even from a biological level. But the Bible goes further, and it says, Jesus says to love our enemies. And that is a very difficult thing to pill to swallow, especially in this day and age when there's so much strife and so much war and disagreement, and this side versus that side,
Mm-hmm.
and so to be called to love our neighbor, but also love our enemies. That's a hard one for a lot of people, even people that follow Jesus. So I think that we see that most exemplified in what he did on the cross. And so this story really, yes, it's meant to resonate with everyone. We didn't want it to just be this just for Christians. We wanted everyone to be able to see a little something. We love nature. We love national parks. So there's certainly a responsibility to take care of the world that God has created, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. But also, I think that there's a spiritual component, and then there's the parental component, which if you're a parent, you know when you've got a little prodigal that constantly wanders away and disobeys, and yet there's nothing that you wouldn't do for that individual. You would lay down your life for that soul. So
But Nathan, you always say we're either a parent or we're a product of a parent, right? So
yeah.
everyone should know this story. And I was gonna add on. Our story is very very simple. It was by design. It was very very simple. We we wanted, first of all, it's a short film, so you don't have a lot of time. We actually aimed for 6 minutes. We wanted it to be 6-ish minutes. And when we first started the film, it had grown a little bit because we wanted to have that setup between the characters and sort of tell a more complete story. So it kind of needed more time. It needed more time to breathe and for you to feel the emotions when the tree gives itself for the bear. You really had to have enough time to set that up. So anyways, so we've seen stories about selfless, heroes. Like it's a time old tale. Our tale as old as time. But what is different is what Nathan was poking at, and this is the sole reason we were making this. Is like I don't think many films like this have been made, where we have this very specific angle on that, which is that idea of undeserved grace. It's an undeserved. It's dying for your enemy, right? It's like, how do we visualize that? And it's so interesting because there have been I'll actually quite a few people that have shared with us. They're like that bear does not deserve that. That bear does not and they're like kind of frustrated. And it was a delicate balance because we actually had versions where the bear was really unlikable, and we did a few things to kind of pad that, to make it so that an audience watching it can kind of come back in, come behind that character, and ultimately the bear does have a very sweet moment at the end when the bear sees that pine cone with the sprig poking out, his pine cone toy that's burned, and he knows there is something that I can do now. I can take what I've learned, and it shows the condition of the bear's heart in that moment, and he smiles. And he takes that pine cone up to the top and he replants it. And not only that, but in the final shot of the film, there's a aspect that we never really explained, but it was always our heart and intention, is that the bear is going around planting trees like that. There's a forest full, as the camera's panning out, that he's been planting trees all over the place. And pine trees can grow in about 30 years. They can get pretty tall. They can actually grow pretty quick. We took some liberties in animation, of course, but the fact that he could still be around, he could be passing on this to generations and showing them how good pine nuts are, and he's feeding his little cubs or grand cubs. I don't know so it's just like it really felt like a story that was needed. And again, we just when we got into it, we didn't realize how much it could be needed right now, with just how much tension there is between everybody, and the idea of most of our team and people that came around us, we all don't share the same core beliefs that we were talking about with our faith. We don't necessarily share that, but it was something that it was a conversation that we were able to have, and everybody had their own thing that they were excited about it for. And I think it really comes down to this idea that I think we all know it's an important lesson, of just caring for each other. At its core, that's what Jesus modeled for us, is how to what's the most loving act you could give somebody. So there we go. That was my additional thing to that.
I loved it. It's great.
Well, I want to say I sympathized with the bear very much. He was very cute, and I think he very much achieved the goal of like sort of bringing everyone together despite possible differing beliefs, because we're Jewish, and my mom said this very
awesome.
much aligned with my values of
Love it.
looking out for nature and giving back and so on. And there's also, I don't know, have people ever come up to you and said this reminded me of the Giving Tree? Was that something that someone told you, like, ever during production or maybe only after?
Yeah, it was kind of after the about midway. We had At that point we were kind of looking at like, okay, well, we should just make sure that no one else has an idea like Forevergreen out there, just as we're getting ready to release it and finish it. And I had actually never read The Giving Tree. I know of Shel Silverstein. I think we had this Where the Sidewalk Ends book as a kid, but I had never read this story. And so I checked it out, and it was like, okay, this is a very different story. However, the core of the idea, and it is about a selfless, character. But again, that's what's different, is that there's not this moment at the end where there's a boy, I believe, that grows up and then sits on. I just remember sitting on a stump at the very end. It's kind of like the last thing that the tree provides. He gets cut down and all that. But the boy is kind of mean in all that, to the tree, in a way, mean. But that this is a way for the bear to actually like have a resolution to his character, that you could actually again, not to say we're improving on Shel Silverstein there. I mean, he was the best, but it is very different in that regard. But it's kind of cool that people that they see that, and they are kind of pointing back to that. At its core, it is based on what we started with, is the prodigal son story, is really our main basis for this film.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 2,000 years before Shel Silverstein.
maybe he was inspired.
Maybe.
Was inspired by the prodigal son. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Perhaps. I also just love the animation style here. They almost feel like miniature figures sometimes moving around this geometric space in a way, and there's so much life to it. I want to talk about how you used animation to build the characters' personalities, even their sense of humor, and then also you guys did some very unique things with frame rate. And I know, Jeremy, you're also a production designer. How does that role actually work on animation?
Yeah, the production designer role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for this film, it started with us having a discussion. So as directors will have kind of a vision, and they'll kind of see like, okay, what does this film need? What is it? What's a reason for it looking this way? And they'll kind of throw some ideas out there, but they bring a production designer on, and I just happened to take on that role in this film. So we had already had these conversations, and it was kind of flowing out of me because I'm actually a wood carver on the side as well. I've been doing this
you really
for
feel
10
that in the
years.
style.
Oh, cool. And so yeah, it felt like a really smart choice, because we were making this in our free time. So every little ounce of time had to be very specifically used. And I had already kind of figured out this design aesthetic, and I was like, well, it would make sense for us to use this as opposed to starting something brand new where I have no idea like where to go with it. So I was able to give very specific. So a production designer oversees a team of artists, and we had an incredible crew that worked with us on this film, and I just oversee all of the design aesthetic ideas, and I was able to give notes and do drawovers and give suggestions and offer. I was able to do artwork as well, add into it of just very specific of me. It's like, okay, well, it's like we're sanding this and we're like cutting this and we're using this type of wood and we're painting this kind of paint on top of the surface of the wood. And I was able to give those kind of notes that were very, very much, attached to. I could just actually, and there was times when I actually went out and just carved a thing, made it, painted it, and then took photos of it, and then I showed that to the crew to say it could look like this. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Jeremy's very unique design language and sensibilities. Like really, like everything, production designer will be both character and environments. And so Jeremy was sketching rocks and logs, and this is how I would make a hill or a flower, or you know what I mean, or a tree. It's like in the background or whatever, where it's very simply cut out, and so it was invaluable, like having him, pour into each of the artists and kind of share like what not only the environment but just like the character. And you talked about the character a little bit before, the bear, where the edges and the facets would be, if you were to actually make this in real life, just the tactile bear. And so Jeremy really had an opportunity to speak into all of that, having already recently made a bear character. And so and we were very much inspired by that initially from his wood shop. And so it was really cool being able to give that to someone like Jin Kim, who then ran with it and came up with some other designs and just kind of plus that. And really in animation, it always starts with a drawing or a sculpture in Jeremy's case. But it's one of these things where, the character artists that, viz dev artists that are coming in and doing expression model sheets. So we had Jin Kim, who's an amazing, talented artist and viz dev artist who worked on characters like Elsa and Hero and so many others. Rapunzel, and so he's a legend in the industry, and a friend, and so he was kind enough to say yes. And did it all hand drawn, and so we were always trying to do things as tactile and on paper, pencil, and always trying to think about how would we solve this if this were a real stop motion set, because it's really a love letter to stop motion. And all of that was birthed from what Jeremy said earlier about what is the reason why we would make this an entirely wooden world. And so because of this being sort of that faith allegory in a way, we wanted to make sure that it felt true to the story of the source material. And so in Genesis 1, as I'm sure you know, in the Torah, it's you've got God creating man in his own image. And so in that same way, we wanted the bear to feel like he could have been carved from the tree, so that there was this visual relationship that you just immediately got. And the fact that Jeremy was a wood carver just made sense too. It was like all these things, it's almost like the film started to tell us what it wanted to be. And then you just kind of go from there and you go, okay, well, we always had handcrafted and limitations. It's like two big words. It's like, okay, well, if we have the limitation of only using wood, like how would you animate that? And actually the limitations birthed really unique solutions. And so we thought, okay, well, what about in stop motion animation? We both love Aardman. We love, all these great stop motion Leica and Will Vinton and stuff that we grew up loving. And it's like, how would they do that? Well, they would do probably like a replacement animation, where they would take a whole sculpture, like a full body replacement animation of the bear, and then they would carve the whole next pose of the bear walking or whatever, and then replace that one sculpture and put the next sculpture down. Because wood, you could add bendy joints and stuff like that, but CG is really bad at making things look like the material it should be. So we have to kind of force it to feel that way. And one of the ways was taking a page from the stop motion replacement animation technique, and then trying to build a technology and tools around allowing us to do that and have our artists control that. And so that's kind of where the unique look came from.
You talk also about the frame rate you utilized and how you
Oh yeah.
lit the foreground and background to create something really seamless, where the foreground is this very distinctive piece, but they still complement each other.
First of
Yeah, you know.
all, wait.
Oh,
First of all, you've just asked Nathan a question that you're about ready to get an earful because he doesn't get this question very often. But
the
he
variable
really
frame
loves
rate.
talking about it. So there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
listening
Well,
in.
variable frame rate, we can talk about that in a second. I mean, that's stuff we see in like films. Spider-Verse is a, classic example of that, where you're not using motion blur and things like that. And then the other piece of that, which is there's a lighting component, which, our lighting team was head by Greg Culp, and he did some really cool things and worked with Paul Felix, who is a industry vet and amazing production designer as well. And we talked about things like scrims, like how do you actually separate the background in this tactile world? Imagine putting your headspace in that this is a physical room where we have to build quarter scale models of sets for, maybe like a wide shot or, and then bigger, detailed kind of set pieces. But we have a limitation of a room, maybe, only like an acre of space or something, or less, or like a little warehouse or something. So it's like that is something that we always try to reframe our brain when we're trying to tackle any solutions. We think about what is the practical way that we would do this. So when filming miniatures, it's we actually in the computer we actually scaled them to about the size that it would be. I think the bear was around 7 inches tall, and the tree, I think there was like kind of maybe like 18 inches or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
1824 something like that. And so um anyways, but so when you do that in the computer, it actually goes crazy, like the depth of field goes haywire. It's very sensitive, and you get the really beautiful shallow depth of field, which you see a lot of in kind of beauty nature documentaries and things like that. And so I don't think we've actually talked about this ever in an interview, but I'm glad you poked at it, which is I'm going a different direction, Jeremy. Less of the variable frame rate. I'll go circle back, but more being able to talk about this thing we haven't talked about, which is the depth of field and the story that it told. Because in the depth of field, we actually use that as another tool in our tool belt to reinforce the relationship between the tree and the bear. So everything should be doing that from the whole production design. And so when we have the tree and the bear connecting, we get this really beautiful shallow depth of field where the background is kind of blown out and or maybe just softer. And then we've got the other parts where we will back off on that depth of field. Like when the bear disobeys, we strip out the depth of field completely to say like that soft, fuzzy, nice feeling is gone. And there's a moment when he's like in the campsite in the fire, and he's kind of trying to go from pile to pile or whatever, and it's just spreading the fire. There's no depth of field in that shot because it's almost like the maximum. There's even a moment in time when he is reaching for the tree and then holding onto his trash that we actually ramp up the amount of depth of field. So yes, it almost looks tilt shift where you get that miniature photography feel to where it's cranked up to its highest, where we see that one kind of classic image of the tree bridging that divide, right? That's sort of one of our anchor images. That's where it's amped up probably to its highest, where it starts to feel like that was the greatest height of that relationship. But as he starts to pull back in his trash, we actually suck it back again. So every time the bear makes a choice, we either add or the tree, either way, we either take away depth of field or we add more depth of field. And so that's a subliminal, subtle thing that I think people feel but don't quite track, but that's just kind of the invisibility of the filmmaker just trying to puppet the emotions. And then yes, the variable frame rate was really fun. We had to figure out again, if this is a real stop motion animated film, like how would we do these camera moves. And so there was some cheating we had to do to get it to feel like if the camera is panning, that we would actually on the held frames still slide the character forward, which you could do in real stop motion if you wanted. But the biggest thing that we were trying to do with the variable frame rate was to, again, this became the heartbeat of the character, this sort of wobble imperfections that happen from trying to make it look like a unique wood carving for every frame of animation. So that heartbeat was, again, something like subtle that we can show that only the tree and the bear do this kind of wood wobbling and replacement animation technique. And if you look closely, the bear, when he's younger, he's a lot more frenetic and he moves more. And so the textures are changing a little more rapidly than this wise old tree, who is much more calculated and stable and chill. And really, you see the whole progression of the bear, so that at the end of the film, when he is his more wise and having learned from the tree and trying to pass on these lessons learned to his cubs or grand cubs, he is also his wobble and his texture variation, the variable frame rate, is actually more like the trees. So it kind of shows that he's learned from the tree. And we get this thing in Christianity as well, where we want to conform to the image of Christ and be more Christ-like. And so that's a small way that we can very subtly track this animation technique to even say the same thing that we're trying to say everywhere else, as this kind of beautiful mosaic that kind of creates a unified picture at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So you guys got an
I told
invite
you you'd get an earful.
Hey, I'm all here for it.
It's
very,
so excited
very
about this. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys got an invite to a little thing called the Oscars. That's no small feat. Can you talk about your favorite moments from this whole journey and from attending the Academy Awards itself?
Jeremy's got a cool story.
Yeah, it was. I'll just say this is like they treated everyone so well. Like it just was a great celebration for all of the filmmakers that were involved, but also all the ones that didn't quite make it to this part of the Oscar campaigning moment or whatever, Oscar season. They treated us all really, really well, and it was really a celebration of the craft of filmmaking and what kind of brings us all together across all different disciplines and different kinds of categories that we're all in. And one of the ways that they did that is they have a luncheon that they throw kind of towards the beginning of it's a month and a half to 2 month long process. And from when you find out that you're going to be going to the Oscars and to when you actually go. And so they do this thing as kind of it's almost like a mixer where they have us all, go to this big fun event, and we just have lunch together, and you can kind of mingle and talk to anybody. It's really an open forum. Everyone's got their own little tables, so you kind of sit around tables with, I think there's four different other people around the table with you, and usually they're plus one. So it's a table full of people, and you just all talk about your craft and why are you here? What film did you work on? And so I sat next to the sound designer from F1 who ended up winning Oscar. I sat next to him. I sat next to the composer of Begonia, and the songwriter of there's just this really cool grouping of all these people there, that you never would have gotten to meet. And then you can also go outside of your table and go up to anybody and say hi. Which I'm not very good at that. So I was very nervous about doing that. But at the very end of the lunch, they have a thing where they call everybody up one by one. And it's a really neat thing where they say your name, they say your project, and then they everyone gives you a little clap. And they go and place you on the stage. And it takes about a half hour. I mean, it was a long process, but there's 200 or more people. And I had thought, like, there was a guy at the event this day that I was like, I've always wanted to meet, and it was Mr. Steven Spielberg, which for most people, Spielberg is the reason they got into filmmaking. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
the films that he did in his career, especially for me early on, that really got me understanding what it is to feel emotions in a story, to feel not only the action adventure and the epic scale and all that fun stuff, the special effects, but it was really the heart. It was always the heart that I think I really responded to in his films. And so I knew he was there. I saw him from afar, and I was like, oh my goodness, it would be so cool if I could be placed like nearby Spielberg, so I could maybe introduce myself. I could actually talk to him. And I told my wife this, and she's like, oh, okay, that would be cool. And so he gets called up on stage. Nathan gets called up on stage. They're kind of in the same area at the top, and they start filling the stage up. Well, eventually, it was like 20 minutes later. I looked at my wife and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to be getting near Spielberg today, but that's cool. And I just I like looked up, and my wife goes, hey, they're moving him down. And so they moved him down, and then they ended up calling my name. Like, so I was just like right in front of him. And I did one of these things where the producer of Zootopia 2 is behind us. And Nathan and I both worked on that film as well. And so, I gave Yvette a big hug. And then I turned around because I was like, oh gosh. And I made eye contact with Spielberg. And then I was like, I should just do this. And so I just turned around and introduced myself. It was like just great. And he goes, hey, what film did you work on? And I said, well, I worked on this short animated film called Forevergreen. And as I said the word Forevergreen, there was a like slow motion moment happen where like his face, he got very concerned. He's like, he puts his hand on his chest and he's like, oh my goodness. He goes, your film really got me. And he had this like kind of concern. He's like, no, it really, really got me. And I'm taking this information in, and it was weird. It wasn't processing. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, Spielberg's seen our film, and it made him feel emotions, like he was feeling the sadness.
That's like peak of life.
I was like, shoot, Nathan's missing out on hearing this. Like, oh no, like what? But Yvette was right there, just sitting back, watching the whole thing. It was great. Like she was there, and so I'm just like, wow, thank you so much. That means so much. And I go to kind of turn away, and he kind of taps my shoulder and brings me back in. He's like, no. It was the end of your film. He really wanted to make sure that I understood why he felt what he felt. And it was just like the highlight for me. It was probably the highlight for me on this whole thing, just to be able to show, again, sort of like a mentor, like show him what you've been working on, and to be able to take that message back to not only to Nathan. I was able to tell him after we all started walking off the stage. Oh, by the way, we take a photo. That's why we are on stage. We take a big group photo.
Yeah. This is, I'll show it. This is what they send you. This is how thoughtful they are. They give you this little folder, and then you can see, here it is. It's pretty neat how they do that. Let's see if I can get Jeremy. Where's Jeremy? Where are you, Jeremy? Oh yeah, there. And then Spielberg nearby. Yeah. Oh, there you guys are. Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, so it's cool. I mean, it's like just such a thoughtful thing that they did, where it just goes to show like how they really roll out the red carpet and treat everyone just so special with all the nominees, and they're just very thoughtful with everything they do, and they really make you feel like your toil was worth it. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, important question. Do you think we've made progress at the Oscars with bear representation, like 2015 The Revenant, 2025 Forevergreen?
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Well, we know Aaron Blaise too, who had Snow Bear.
Yep. And
so he's an old, he's a Disney vet as well.
He's a friend.
And so he was just so amazing to tour around with on the festival circuit. Like I met him at Annecy and a lot of the other festivals that we were both in, and just saw him everywhere and got to know him better, because I didn't know him before. I knew of him, I just didn't know him personally. And what a special film that was. So it was funny. It was Jeremy and I were like, of course, the one year that we finally finish after working on this for 6 years. It's like it's Snow Bear with another ex Disney animated.
Our first poster we put out too was, and by design, we just were like we wanted to have sort of a teaser poster. It's our cub looking up at the tree. I don't know if you've seen it, and it's very like pinkish and purples tones, but it's a snowy environment. And so we put that out for a little while. We're like, okay, we've got to get our we have to bump up the release of our. We had a second poster kind of ready to go, and we're like, we better get that one out there so that like we give Aaron all the snow room that he can have. And we set our film in the snow at the start too. And anyways, it was funny, but
Yeah. There's tons of bear representation.
lots
Now.
of bears.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you think this bear from Forevergreen would fit well in Zootopia in the city there?
Oh
Would he
no,
behave himself?
I think aesthetically, yeah. Oh yeah, would he? I don't know. I think that's such a different world, right? That's like the world where they have, evolved upright and they're anthropomorphic and stuff. I mean, he's very much a bear in the national parks, so I
You know
don't think he
the
would.
design of the bear though. You can't help by like I know for me personally, Mark Davis is a huge inspiration for me. I don't know if you know Mark Davis's work, but he did Country Bear Jamboree. If you've seen that wonderful attraction, it's one of my favorites. But just his line quality, his the character expressions. As a student of animation, I studied Mark's work. I studied Bill Peet, the story artist Bill Peet, who did. There was actually a book, which was funny because there's a book called Big Bad Bruce and I have a bunch of his books, and I've read them cover to cover. I study the way that he puts down ink line and then tone it with a colored pencil. Like his artwork is so great, and he was a story art. He did my same job at Disney years ago, and but then he left the studio to go work on these kids books, and he did I think 30 or 40 or more. Anyways, there's a book called Big Bad Bruce, and when I started on Forevergreen, and I was throwing out the idea of having a bear in the film to Nathan, I had that book on my shelf in my office, and I just took pictures of Big Bad Bruce because he's just a grumpy bear, and I was like, I like photocopied those and I pinned them up on this board so that I could just quickly pitch to Nathan. A lot of times when we're starting projects at Disney, we just pull inspiration from everything. We'll go to the internet, we'll go to books, we'll go to whatever, and we'll just find like, okay, this kind of tree or this kind of character here, just so that we can kind of stand back and look at color and imagery to get inspired, and it usually ignites an idea. So this was just my quick way of conveying that to Nathan. I did some original drawings as well, but in the after we had already kind of worked on it a while, I went back into that book and I looked at the beginning of it, and Bill Peet had called the I believe Big Bad Bruce, because it's kind of a fantastical story that there's a witch involved in it and stuff, but he lives in the Forevergreen forest. And I was like, that's so crazy. Like I had not even read it. I was just looking at the images when I was working on all that. But it was just this like, you never know. Like as a kid, maybe it like got stuck in my head. But through our pitch, the reason why it's called Forevergreen is when I was talking with Nathan, I was trying to convey like, this story. It's like God's love for us is, it could be shown through an evergreen tree. The fact that it's always, it doesn't die. It's like it doesn't die off easily. Like the way real trees work. The idea of replanting and this kind of renewal thing. And I just said, it's like Forevergreen. It's like Forevergreen. It's like forever, ever. You keep like saying evergreen, but you keep adding that in. And he immediately just like, that's it. That's our title. So it was as simple as that. But just like those kind of stories are kind of fun.
Yeah, and we talked about how beautifully the style is inspired by wooden carvings. Are there any toys, plush toys, Funko Pops in the works based on the bear and the tree?
Boy,
Oh my gosh.
there should be. That would be pretty fun. That would be
Yeah,
pretty
there was
fun.
some fan art of someone who recently did like a CG rendering in Blender of what a Lego version would look like. It was pretty cool. Like we put it on our it's on my Instagram stories, but
Wait,
um,
I thought that was real Legos.
I so did I initially with the bear,
What?
and maybe the bear was, but I'm pretty
That's
sure it's a
so
CG
cool.
thing. But it look I think you use real like the limitations of what each piece is, you know. So
Yeah,
it's as if
that's
you're
so
building it
cool.
in the computer, but it's awesome. I'm like, this has got to be a real Lego one day, you know. But we, you know, Jeremy and I, we it's so funny. We got a view of every department, and Jeremy loves doing. I think his, you know, your father or your grandfather was a graphic designer, right? Your
Hmm.
grandfather was it? So
Yep.
he loves living in sort of a graphic design world as well, and lettering and font and then so the marketing piece, and both Jeremy and I are interested in, you know, being surrounded and saturated in a company like Disney. You really get to see how an IP goes home to people,
Yep.
and how the story can live on in a book or in a, you know, in a plush or whatever. And we love that. I mean, there's some independent animators and friends even. Don Clark is a great example of that. A guy who did our end credits, who is always dabbling with little physical things as well as print. And I've always been so jealous of wanting to do more of that. And so this is kind of a fun opportunity. We got to do some of it. Like we made an incredible vinyl, a Zoetrope vinyl for the soundtrack, which I
Yeah,
believe
I
Don
saw.
Clark will be able, yeah.
Hmm.
So I think he's going to be able to be selling them on his website, Invisible Creature. And then
You
we,
should show the thing that's not for sale, but you should show that that little cub.
What's
oh
that?
yeah, this thing. We made a little crew gift, which was this little character maquette, which is just a
Oh,
nice
yeah, I
way
saw
of
that on your Instagram.
yeah. So we made this
Lovely little
guy. So we
souvenir.
didn't make things. We made the vinyl Zoetrope record. We made the sculpture. We made T-shirts and crew shirts. So those were a lot of things that we were giving as gifts to the crew. Remember, they were giving and donating their time for free, 200 volunteers worth. So we were always
I
trying
think
to.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think right now, like we are in a moment of, you know, we've been having some great conversations and thinking about kind of where this could all go, and so there may be something to, you know, there may be something in the future that may come,
Hmm.
but we're kind of we're definitely excited. We've always thought like it'd be fun. I'm just gonna throw this idea. It'd be fun to make a Mr. Potato Head, not, you know, not Mr. Potato Head, but like a pine cone that you could just stick stuff in or whatever. And you could actually go do that. You could actually go on a hike. We actually made our own pine cone
Hmm.
toys. Anybody in the world can do it because you just go out to the woods, go find a nice big
Hmm.
pine cone and stick sticks in it and make a little
Hmm.
character. So so you can make your own toys right now in
Yeah.
nature if you want. But
Yeah.
if you're okay waiting, maybe there'll be something someday. Who knows? You know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes your story live on, that takes it from timely to timeless, is its optimism. That beautiful optimism at the end. Even Conan O'Brien at the Oscars spoke about
Mm.
how optimism may feel scarce, but it's the most human thing, and it's the thing we need most right now. So, what do you hope children and younger audiences take away from Forever Green?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a great question. And I think just wanted to touch on the optimism piece. I think the
Yeah,
gospel is the most optimistic thing that for humanity. You know, we talk about Romans 5:8 a lot. It was in our pitch deck, in addition to the verse that's on the end of our film with John 15:13. But um, you know, Romans 5:8 says that, you know, that God demonstrates his own love towards us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And that's good news, because we couldn't save ourselves, and so God came to save us. And that message that we that we have a hope, a living hope. It's not a hope in a dead person, it's hope in someone who is alive and has rose again. And we have hope that we can rise again and be with him forever, if that forever love that he shows us. Like that to us is one of the greatest pieces of optimism that we can pass on and share. But you know, if there, we understand there's a lot of people that don't necessarily see or agree or believe the same things we do. And for those folks, you know, we would hope that this film would inspire a sense of wonderment of who this, you know, what, why are we here, what the world is about, and the God who desires to have a relationship with us, so much so that he would stretch across an infinite chasm to save us. You know, that's kind of the message that we would love to share with people, and to know that there's a lot of hopelessness going on in the world. You know, there are, you know, fear. There's a lot of these words sort of epitomizes what is happening in our day and age. And I think when you're able to provide that kind of hope for someone, that even in your darkest moments, there is that hope available to you. And so that's something that we would hope that would encourage people and would want people to feel inspired by when they watch the film. Oh, Jeremy, did you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge component of it. There's also, I will say, just from an artistic standpoint, just speaking to the artists out there, the creative people out there, you know, when you spend time making something that you love, like what we did on Forevergreen, and we made it in our free time. It was a passion project. It was a project made purely of love. Our crew gave their free time to make it, because they also loved it. And now in all of those wonderful sort of the back end stuff that's happening now that the film's done, the comments people are leaving, the response people are having, it making it to the Oscars, us talking with you right now, and then whoever's listening on this podcast right now, it's like it follows all the way through. This means so much to the creatives that put their heart and soul into something like this. So I would just say, as a thing to inspire, I would hope people would be inspired to go make things. Go make things that matter, that you know, that sort of need to be made. Like there's so many more ideas out there. There's so many more stories, and it really just, it comes down to just people picking up the torch and going and lighting the way and showing how to do it and showing that there's more to be done. And again, like just picking the idea of optimism or hope, or just focusing in on these aspects that I think could really, it could make a difference in our world in a very positive way. And granted, we have a very, like, we're anchored in our faith, and we hope that is the main thing that people pull away from it. But of course, like, we're also artists. We love the craft, and so we hope there's some other filmmakers out there who are listening to this, who are intrigued, and they're inspired, and they go, oh my goodness, that group of artists did something really cool together. I want to do that, and oh, I have an idea, you know. So that's my thought.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for your time, and I agree. I hope that creativity and compassion and heart in that film continues to be contagious from the viewers on YouTube, like myself, the people watching, all the way to Steven Spielberg. And so I again want to say thank you and congratulations on all the phenomenal success that, as we're seeing today, keeps on growing and growing. And just thank you again for your time, and best of luck with everything moving forward too.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank
us.
you so much.